Hi and welcome back to the third video in our wing foiling series. This video we're going to be talking about foiling jibes and going switch stance. If you haven't already checked out the other videos in our series, the foil and how it works under your feet and how you control it when you start to fly, and getting flying and staying flying in lighter winds, make sure you check out those videos as well. We hope you find these videos really useful to overcome what we think are some of the main stumbling blocks when it comes to wing foiling. So let's talk about foiling jibes and going switch stance. Now when you first start to foil, the most common way to turn around is a jibe. The jibe is basically a turn that goes downwind, opposed to a tack, which is a turn where you go upwind. You can of course perform a jibe on and off the foil, but in this video I'm going to be talking about foiling jibes really. Now to do a foiling jibe, you have actually got a few options when it comes to changing your feet at the end or not changing your feet, which is coming out switch stance like we say, or you could even change your feet before the entry to the jibe. In this video, I'm only going to be speaking about changing your feet at the exit of the jibe and coming out switch stance, which is where you leave your feet in the same position throughout the jibe and as you travel back across the wind as well. So how do you basically initiate a jibe? The first thing I want you to focus on is the carve or the arc of the jibe. To fundamentally initiate the jibe, you're going to be leaning onto your toe side edge. You will not need to change your feet position so much if you're in your foot straps or out of your foot straps. It's very, very easy to do this, opposed to some other board sports like windsurfing, where you need to maybe transition your body weight over to the downwind rail. With foiling, we can turn very much off the same position as we do when we're actually standing in our normal riding stance. So by leaning onto our toes, we can carve into the turn and start our jibe. Just like in the first video, board trim is key to making the jibe successful. Making sure your board is not only trimmed from left to right, which is the carving, arcing side of the turn, but also from forward to back, to making sure the airplane flies in the middle and doesn't nosedive and doesn't ride too high. A reminder, if you haven't watched the first video where I speak about taking off and how your foil works under your feet, definitely watch that video because it'll help you with this one. So throughout your foiling jibe, you're going to be constantly trimming your weight forward and back, left to right, to make sure you get the correct arc, the correct turn, and also to make sure you stay at the correct height above the water. For me in general, height-wise, I don't try and ride the foil really high all the time, because you in effect are way higher off the water and your centre of effort is much higher as well, so it's going to make the jibe a little bit harder. But at the same time, I don't want to be riding the foil really down low where my boards and my rail might catch, because that might throw me off a little bit as well. So you want to try and ride the foil in the middle of the mast, give you a nice comfortable ride height throughout the turn. We'll be speaking about foot straps and non-foot strap placements and other footwork in a second. But now let's talk about your wing. What will you be doing with your wing during a jibe? When it comes to the wing, there is a point in the jibe where you are going to have to transition from one side of your wing to the other side of your wing. Now, this timing of the transition is crucial to making sure the jibe is smooth, effortless, and also make sure you keep as much speed as you go through the whole jibe. If any of you have come from the windsurfing days and you remember the old carb jibe, which is a very technical hard maneuver, you'll always be flipping your rig dead downwind. You'll be letting the wind turn the rig or the sail, as making it as effortless as possible. And that's exactly what you need to be doing with the wing as well. As I enter the jibe, I'm going to be moving my front hand as far forward as I can in the handle loop, or if there's another little forward handle loop, I'm going to be going right to the front of that. But if you can get your hand as far forward as possible, it will help the rotation as the wing does its transition. Then as you're nearing the halfway point in the jibe, I want you to let go of your backhand, and you will feel that the wind, as you carry on your jibe, carry on carving round, the wind will help the wing start to turn. As you feel the wing starts to turn, then you'll bring your existing backhand underneath your front hand and grab the handle, which is then now your new front hand, and your old front hand will go to the back of your handle position to be the new backhand. Now, doing this when you're going dead downwind is crucial because you really are allowing the wind to help you as much as possible to transition and turn that wing around. And also, not only that, it allows you to keep as much power in the wing as possible. You could sort of transition the wing later on. Maybe you could come out with the wing a little bit twisted and then flip the wing around further around the jibe. But at that point, the wind is already starting to load back up in the wing. So you're actually going to be wasting energy, or you're going to be dropping off the foil quicker if you do it then. By doing it directly downwind, that is when you are moving with the wind at the most. So in effect, the wind is going to give you the least amount of power into the wing, making it easier to rotate, and it's going to make it more efficient to rotate. And now we're in a switch stance position. I definitely think staying in this switch stance position is good to really understand the flow and the carve of your jibe and the flight time of your jibe, and also get the transition of the wing nailed first before you start thinking about switching your feet at the end of the jibe, because it definitely does add an extra thing to think about, an extra thing to balance. I definitely find coming out switch stance was much easier for me to understand when I first started doing jibes. Now, riding switch stance is effectively where you're riding with your back almost to the wing and your toes are in effect pointing upwind, but your leading leg is still the same leading leg as what you were riding when you went into the turn or when you were riding the other way. Now, many people think switch stance is impossible to do unless you do yoga 3 times a week and you're a younger generation. Now, there's no doubt that being a younger and a bit more flexible will help, but there's definitely a few things and a few pointers that if you bear in mind, it will become much easier. You really want to rotate your shoulders so they're facing back in the direction you want to go. And if you're struggling to do this, if you lift your back elbow upwards, it makes it much easier. By me pointing it to the sky, it means I can bring my hand in behind and under my armpit, which means I can get the wing in tighter. And it also allows me to be able to twist with my hips more and rotating myself so my hips are pointing to where I want to go. Now, what that does is a really key thing. It allows you to put equal weight on your front and back leg. If you twist your hips and rotate the hip to where you want to go, it allows you to lean onto your front leg and also have weight onto your back leg, which then means you can carve easily upwind if you wanted to, or you can easily carve back to where you came from. If you don't rotate your hips, you'll realize that all of your weight is on your back leg. And basically what that's going to do, it's going to make it very tail heavy, which means you're going to trim your foil up, which means you might breach. So by rotating your hips forward, you can put equal weight on your front and back leg, and you're going to find you better ride that board switch stance, no problem at all. And the last thing, when we're talking switch stance, we've done our arms, we've done our elbow, we've done our waist. We're now going to be talking about your back foot. Your back foot, you might want to bring your heel off of the back of the board, and that way it'll allow you to rotate your hips even more, giving you a little bit more freedom. This is definitely the tip. If you're struggling and you're not as flexible as you used to be, bring your heel off the back of the board, give you a little bit more freedom. So let's look at the other option you've got at the end of your jibe. Maybe you don't want to ride switch stance, or maybe you've already been riding switch stance and you want to nail switching your feet. How you approach it with foot straps and without foot straps is slightly different. I'll give you a quick rundown without foot straps, because no doubt that is easier because you have less in the way on the board and you can allow your feet to be in a slightly different position. As I enter the jibe, what I might do is I might shuffle my back foot slightly more towards the downwind rail, the rail I'm going to be leaning on to initiate the turn. After that, then I'll be rotating my front foot so my heel comes back and my toes are pointing forward with my front leg. This will allow my front leg to also be closer to the center line of the board as well. As I've completed the jibe and I've done my transition with my wing, then I'm going to be looking at changing my feet. But I'm not going to be looking at changing my feet until I've loaded up the wing and I have started to go back the other way. So in effect, you're already doing a little bit of switch stance here. As soon as you feel that the wind is in the wing and you are flying comfortably, it is your moment to be dynamic, quick, and change your feet around. There is a few different techniques and there isn't a wrong or right way of doing it. So if you know somebody who's managing to switch their feet and see how they do it, definitely have a look, see what they're doing. Timing, confidence, and a fluid movement is the key to making your jibes and switching your feet. For me, I like to switch my foot forward and my foot back in one go, almost a little jump as I go around. Then, as long as you are trimming your board from left to right and from forward to back, you're going to make your jibe. If you lean onto one leg, you're going to go and turn the board. If you lean forward or lean back, you might breach or you might nosedive. This is where, thinking again of the first video we spoke about, trimming that foil, getting your flight completely perfect. Whatever happens, if you suddenly nosedive during your turn, think, I put too much weight on a front foot. If you breach and come out of the water, think, I've put too much weight on my back foot. If you carve upwind, if you carve downwind, you know where your foot's going. So it's very intuitive and it sort of tells you where the mistake was happening. Now, when it comes to doing this movement with foot straps, it's very similar, but it requires a bit of a bigger leap of faith at the beginning. I suppose you need to take your back foot out of the foot strap, place it on the other edge just in front of the foot strap, and your front foot, I would definitely say, slide out of the foot strap a little bit and try and rotate your heel down so your toes are pointing towards the front of the board. Then at the end of the turn, in the same position at the same time, you want to be switching your feet around. Because you've got the foot straps in the way, sometimes you might catch your back foot on the foot strap as you bring it round. So I would recommend, if you are trying to nail those jibes and switching your feet afterwards, probably take your foot straps off just for this exercise, or just ride with one front strap and get rid of the back strap. You may also see and find in the future you might like to switch your feet before you go into the jibe. It's definitely not as common, but as long as your wing is loaded up and your board is balanced and trimmed correctly, you can still move your feet around. Again, like all stuff, is practice, 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 but there's definitely some key points that can make it a lot easier. One of the biggest ones that is completely overlooked by so many brands as well as beginners is the size of the foil. The size of your foil, including the tail stabilizer and the fuselage length, has a crucial part to play, whether you're making your jibes, coming out switch stance, whether you're actually managing to switch your feet afterwards as well. The bigger the front wing, the wider the wingspan, the easier it is going to be. If you imagine trying to stand up and turn around on a foil that's this wide, compared to a foil that's this wide, this foil is going to give you so much more lateral stability. A longer fuselage, further back down the back of the foil with a bigger tail section, a bigger stabilizer, again, it's going to give you way more stability. It's going to make the foil feel way more planted. So if you've tried jibing and you're not really making them, or you've made the odd one on a 1500 centimeter front wing, I bet you if you get on a 2000, you will make your jibes, and you're definitely going to find it way easier when it comes to switching your feet. Not only from the stability of the foil, but also the glide and the flow of the foil, because this also makes a big difference. If you're really clumsy with your footwork and you're not very efficient with your transition, every sort of bit of movement you do on top of the board is going to, in effect, slow your foil down. Having a bigger foil with more lift is going to help you glide through that spot where you haven't got any power in your wing. The next thing, it is easier to jibe when it's windy than when it's lighter wind. I'm not talking 40 knots here, 20 knots, 25 knots. When there's a nice breeze, it's much more efficient and easier to jibe. The reason is, as you go for your transition and you let go of your wing, the wind is going to pull your wing up. It's going to keep the bottom edge of your wing away from the nose of the board. So it's going to ride nice and high, and it's going to help transition that wing around really easily. If you're going to be jibing in lighter winds with bigger wings, you're going to find it harder, because you've got more weight in the wing, you've got less wind pushing that wing, and definitely when you're halfway through that transition, that downwind point, that's when there's almost no wind at that point. The wing is going to feel heavy and it's going to be much harder to rotate. So going out in more wind will be easier when you start off. This next point goes hand in hand with enough wind, really, board speed. Keeping good board speed will allow you to make the jibe easier. it'll allow you to make more mistakes and allow you to not be efficient with your board and foil trim, but allow you to keep riding through the actual rest of the turn. So going in with more speed can be a bit scary, but it will actually make the end of the jibe a little bit easier, because the more flow you have over the foil, the more stability you will have with the foil as well. Another thing is, let's have a look about boards. Now, this is actually a really good example of the starboard board. Starboard boards have all got really good concaves in the deck. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm doing this with starboard gear. I'm saying it because it generally does make a massive difference having a concave in the deck, because as you approach the middle of the foil, which is where you'll be standing here, the board is lower in the middle there, so you're closer to the actual foil, so you're going to feel more connected to the board as well. And also, I feel that almost all of the effort and the focus and the weight is all pointing towards the middle of the board, which is the center line of the board, which is where you want to be standing and trimming the whole time when you're going to be keeping your foil and making sure it's nice and stable. So boards with concaves and deck really do make a difference to making it easier to jibe, and especially when it comes to switching your feet at the end of your jibes as well. And the last thing is practice, 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 but not only on the water, practice on the land. If you've got enough space or you found an old car park and you can get your wing out, doing it on a skateboard is a fantastic way of getting your transition with your jibe bang on. You will be doing them dead downwind. You'll be really cracking that, and you'll also be cracking the carve as well, the entry to the jibe. Get your board on the grass in your lawn, changing your feet over, riding switch stance. Maybe don't have the wing in your hand, but just feel how it should feel. Get your muscle memory going with your legs and your arms. Just really practice, practice, practice. Doing it on land can be just as beneficial, if not more, than doing it on the water itself. When it comes to understanding whether to ride switch or not ride switch, there's a few things to play. Definitely if you're finding it harder to twist and turn, you don't like your body in that switch stance position, you're probably going to be changing your feet a lot more. For me personally, it's all about where I am winging and what sort of winging I'm doing. Off here, we do a lot of shorter base winging, so maybe it's 200 meters, 300 meters rides each time. I'll just probably ride switch back and forth, back and forth. And also, if I'm in the surf, I'll ride switch a lot of the time because I want to go out, jibe back on the wave face. So I want my turns to be really quick, and I'm generally riding with foot straps. So a lot of switch stance stuff there. But if I'm doing longer distance stuff out in the open ocean, cruising down some big estuary somewhere, I will change my feet on the jibes because I'll be in that position for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I don't really want to ride switched for that long. So there we go. I hope you found this video really useful and it helped you understand more about jibing and riding switch. It's definitely a practice thing, but hopefully there's enough information in there to get you out on the water and on the land and get you trying to get these jibes nailed. Remember, as always, if there's anything I've said that you don't understand, or there's any other comments and questions or tips you've got for us as well, please get them in the comments section below. If you're new to SUPboarder, make sure you check out the website. There's loads of great content on there. We see winging as a great accessory alongside SUP, which is why we're bringing you this Wing Foil series. I really hope you've enjoyed the series, and we look forward to seeing you on the water and doing more Wing and SUP videos real soon. Cheers.